Hello, I'm Tom Ferguson and welcome to The Fundamental Molecule. This show explores the intersection of water, technology, and entrepreneurship. Each week, I interview innovators, experts, entrepreneurs, and investors in the world of water, helping us understand where this trillion-dollar industry is headed. These are the stories of the people building the future of the world's most valuable and fundamental resource.
Disclaimer. Tom Ferguson is the managing partner of Virgin Island Ventures. All opinions expressed by Tom and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Virgin Island Ventures. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be viewed as investment advice or relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.
There is a lot going on in AI right now, from the travails of ChatGPT to the technology being essentially single-handedly responsible for the surge of the so-called Magnificent Seven and therefore the overall S&P 500 in 2024. But what does it mean for water? Mudasser Iqbal is a career technologist and an exceptional guy. Previous CEO of Vicente before its acquisition by our friends at Xylem in 2016, and he and his co-founders reformed to pursue the AI opportunity in water. TeamSolve is going after a tough problem, essentially aiming at solving the lack of easily accessible institutional memory and insight in water utilities, using the power of AI. This is a fascinating run through the ins and outs of applying this technology in water, the practicality of problem solving, working with remote teams, maintaining customer focus, and much, much more. Please enjoy my conversation with Mudasser Iqbal. Mudasser, what an enormous pleasure to see you. How's everything going?
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Tom. It's been great. 2025 has started on a really, really top note for us. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's only January the 14th as of the time of recording. Coming out of the gates fast. I really appreciate it. Well, Mudasser, you have the rarefied pleasure of being one of the burnt islanders that focuses in AI. So the first question is, what are you finding most exciting about AI in 2025? What do you think that people should be keeping an eye on of the stuff that's really going to matter in this area that's obviously taking up a huge amount of oxygen at the moment?
A lot of stuff is up in the air. Before the time of ChatGPT, we're all like, AI was in the research communities and in the professors and lectures, etc. And suddenly, when everybody knows about ChatGPT, everybody is suddenly an AI expert. The fact of the matter is AI has been around for a very long time, almost 4 or 5 decades has been around us. And there have been enormous contributions that AI has been making all along. You talk about the drug discovery, you talk about predictive maintenance in manufacturing, very recently, diabetes-related sight loss recovery through AI. So it has been amazing feats that we have all taken. And not to mention about the Sotheby's auction where AI God and artwork was sold for about $1 million, done by an AI robot, humanoid robot. So I think what specifically, when we talk in 2025 about and 2024 about AI, I think a lot of us are referring to generative AI. And stuff that a lot of us did not know about. And suddenly we know that now you can generate images, now you can generate text, now you can generate answers and poems and all of that stuff. So I think from that height, starting in 2023, ramping up in 2024, I think a lot of us are realizing now the limitations on one side of this technology. Because coming out of the hype cycle, what we are now seeing is, as the greatest of the minds of the AI have said always, that AI on its own is nothing. It's all about the applications. And when we are talking about the real world applications, now we are realizing that generating text, generating images, etc., is not good enough. When we are starting to solve real world problems, we are starting to see its limitations. So I think where 2025 is going to take us to is a lot of reset in we starting to, on one side, understanding the limitations of out-of-the-box AI models, but at the same time, a lot of work is going to happen on agentic frameworks where we're going to build those tools that are going to help us do those physical tasks and going to really help the mankind in solving those mundane tasks that is the real promise of the AI. So I'm very positive. I'm very excited about where the field is going as it's resetting to its basis, and we're going to start to solve real problems with AI.
Super helpful. You mentioned agentic frameworks. Mercifully, I'm sort of close enough to this to know directionally what you mean, but I think quite a lot of people who are listening to this may not. Would you mind just spending a little bit of time on agents and how you think about it and their significance going forward as we kind of get used to this idea of AI in the real world, not just like, look at an elephant holding a suitcase, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. In a very simple way, if you look at a ChatGPT interface and you ask a question, you get an answer. You ask a question, you get an answer. And okay, what do you do? But what we have realized is a lot of stuff is not in ChatGPT. A lot of stuff sits outside these language models. You want weather predictions, you want a lot of help that we need in our world, whether it's from making a hotel booking to finding contaminants in the water network or predicting the paths of algal blooms requires a lot of data, real world data that is not in the language models. So the frameworks which are evolving, what we call the agentic frameworks, is once we have understood the problem that we're trying to solve, break down that problem into smaller pieces and have those little pieces of code that will go do those smaller tasks. So a little piece of code will go and get some data from the internet. Another one will go and connect to your booking site and do this booking. So, and they all work at a symphony. And that is all could be orchestrated by a language model. So generative AI at its best, generating a plan for these agents to act in symphony and solving a real problem that's going to help you more than writing a poem.
Right. One of the things that I find most confusing about what's going on with AI at the moment is everybody thinks that the world's going to fall apart if for whatever reason, the new version of Llama or Gen AI or like whatever it's going to be, of ChatGPT isn't going to be that much better at doing the thing with the text box, which sort of spits out an answer regardless of veracity. If that doesn't work all the way up to being God, then everything's going to fall apart. It seems to be like there's a whole world of practicality.
Exactly.
Where, structures like you're building can be seriously impactful regardless of what's happening with the mega stories of the day. So transition us into water. Why is the time right for AI in water? And then we'll get into what you're doing.
If you look at the water systems globally, obviously the innovation in water system is not new. We have always seen innovations. Thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt, they used to use some levers on the River Nile. And that was an innovation, how to an old style pump.
It's been around for a minute.
Exactly. But as I'm giving an example, I go all the way back to the ancient Egypt. And then the next example, it will be late 17th century when we have the latest class of the centrifugal pumps. It takes thousands of years, right? So thousands of years to take.
Curse you, Dark Ages.
Take innovation in the water networks. Now, because of this, the pace of innovation in the water networks, what has also happened is a lot of how we operate these complex systems. These are dynamic, very complex systems, buried systems, lots of tens of thousands of assets all over the place, a lot of people operating. And once people start to operate such systems, they tend to stay there and retire in those places, accumulating all that knowledge. The sensing technologies have not always been, water systems have not been the first targets of such sensing technologies. So a lot of desperate knowledge sources, a lot of desperate data sources available all over the place, not enough to solve the problems in a far sophisticated automated manner. Meaning that if we talk about traditional ways of solving problems, if you talk about rule-based programming, for example, like a lot of other industries have been helped with because there has been a lot of data available in those industries. And a lot of cases, a lot of data sitting around, a lot of use cases. So you can figure out the rules of the game and you can write a simple program. But in the water network, we have struggled all along because of the lack of data, because of lack of standards, disparate systems. And that has led us to stay with a lot of manual human-powered labor to operate the system. So now that we are in this age of generative AI, like we said, AI has been helping the water networks all along. Leak detection, prediction of the contaminants in the water network, this has been there all along. But now specifically, if we talk about the generative AI and the potential here is now there is a possibility to connect the dots. All those dots that we were not able to connect before because of lack of information, lack of data, now there is a way to connect with the power of generative AI. And we can talk a bit more about that. What are the different cases and how that applies? So I see a massive potential that with the status quo of the lack of data, lack of standards, lack of accuracy, with that status quo, we can now start to leapfrog some of the problems that we have always struggled with.
Make it real for us. So TeamSolve, obviously the team that you set up with your co-founders, I think the best way to get at it is describe the way in which, I mean, you can come in at any angle you would like, but what I'd love to hear is through the lens of the user. Like, how does someone's life change by using what you're doing? Because what I'd love to get out is the kind of the practicality of this, rather than just kind of lines of codes and the agent that you're using, like exactly what changes in your user's life.
So I'll give you a couple of examples that may illustrate how critical is the problem that we're trying to solve. In Malaysia, a couple of years ago, there was a massive pipe burst. And this is a customer that we interviewed when we started TeamSolve about 3 years ago. So we interviewed this customer and we said, they related to us this situation. They had a massive pipe burst in the middle of the city. And the team scrambled to go and isolate the pipe to stop the water. It's a trunk main, thousands of gallons of water. They cannot find the valve. Struggled for 8 hours scrambling to find the valve. And in the end, somebody said, hey, John used to work in this area. Maybe he knows. Okay, where is John? John has retired. Okay, try to call him. Somebody picked up his number. They called John, and John said, oh, yeah, the valve is not on the main pipe. It's on the offshoot. So that's there are a few offshoot valves that you need to close. The main one is not working or something, he said. Lo and behold, they follow his advice and they could shut the water. Now, 8 to 10 hours of unnecessary water leakage just because this information that John has in his head was not recorded anywhere. He had this information. He had worked on this system for almost 2 decades. He retired, took away his knowledge with him. Another one we worked with, another utility we are working with in Australia, they said a lot of times they have found out that at night time, Australia is a massive country. You have pumping stations at 2 hours drive every time there is an alarm. They said they have found in a certain month that more than 70% of those field trips have been unnecessary. When this operator turns up by 2 a.m., he has been running back-to-back shifts, back-to-back urgent work. And then tonight again, 2 a.m., he has to go and do this maintenance. He turns up on the pump station and says, oh gosh, why you guys keep sending me again? I told you, don't send us here. We cannot do anything about this. This needs to be escalated to the OEM. The problem is this utility is telling this operator has mentioned all this in log notes. When they have these work orders, these operators they write all these things in log notes. Nobody is able to read these log notes. One of the utilities that we're working with, they have roughly for one type of instrument, they have 100,000 log notes coming every year. Nobody's able to read. And it's those log notes that carry gems of information.
Why are they not able to read? Is because they're written by hand and literally sitting on pieces of paper and are both inaccessible, and B, also no one can be bothered because it's completely impractical?
Some are by hand, but a lot of those are digital. You have a lot of digital field apps. People write all these, but they write like 5, 6, 7, 8 lines of text. It's just a lot of text. You have tens of thousands of instruments in a water network, and you have all these thousands of operations happening every month. Humanly, just an impossible task for somebody to read through all the notes and make a picture in his or her head what's happening with every asset. It's just impossible. So basically what's happening is, from these 2 examples, probably we can figure out that there's a lot of tacit knowledge around the assets and operations in a water network that either is locked in the heads of the people, or it sits in piles and piles of documents or databases. And it just stays locked away. Nobody is able to get through all of this. It is inaccessible. When I turn up on site, I don't know what happened previously on this site. If I ask a question, if I ask somebody, they throw at me 10 and 20 different documents that I have to manually glance through. So what happens is unnecessary time spent on site. I'm spending a lot of time troubleshooting why this pump is out. And while I'm this troubleshooting, remember what's happening. A lot could be tens of thousands of people out of water while I'm trying to troubleshoot. So unnecessary time spent on site, and then people being scrambled around at 2 a.m. for unnecessary trips. Think about worker fatigue. People are fatigued. Even when they are overpaid over time, they're fatigued. They don't want to do this. And compound this problem with aging workforce. We have heard about the population collapse these days. In Australia, for example, and also in some of the developing worlds, experts in the water network, there is an estimate that half of those experts will be retiring in the next decade. So on one side, you have all these experts retiring. They have the knowledge. They're taking away this knowledge. And on the other side, you have a massive knowledge gap. You have inexperienced workforce, which is put to handle tasks in the field. They're responding to the incidents, not to mention the climate change, which is stressing these assets more and more on a daily basis. It's a nightmare situation. And without access to this tacit knowledge, it's just causing hundreds of millions of dollar losses in operational expenses to these utilities.
So walk us through how you bridge that gap. I mean, it's an enormous job. I mean, it really is. It's absolutely vital. The way in which we sort of talk about it is that when somebody wanders off to go and play golf in their sunset years, taking all of the institutional knowledge of exactly how their system works with them, that is a disaster for the utility. Like, people just have to essentially learn it from the ground up. And what's most compelling about yours is this ability for you to become an intelligent repository for all of this institutional knowledge. Talk us through what you've built and how you've built it.
What we realized from day one is building, of course, these transformer models, the GPT models, which are now available. This is a capability that has enabled us and other companies who are working in this domain is to be able to process human language. So think about when we start to work with a customer, we think about what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Is your problem alarms response? So the people sitting in the command center, is their problem that they are not able to know what to do when alarms come up on the screen? Or is your problem when you have your field technicians go out on site, they don't know how to solve the problems because they're inexperienced? So first of all, when we work with our customers, we identify a pain point. What is your pain point you're trying to solve? Once a pain point has been picked up, then we ask if they have any historical data around that pain point. So if it is alarms, we're talking about treatment plants, we're talking about sewer pump stations, for example. Let's say they have 50 sewer pump stations and they want to automate responding to the triage of the alarms. We ask them if they have any historic data. If they do, this historic data is typically in terms of databases of log notes, work orders, could be operations manuals from the manufacturer guidelines, could be standard operating procedure that they have put together. So all forms of data sets, even SCADA systems, which record all the sensor readings. So you collect all this data and we train the AI. Now, the training the AI here is not training the language model, because when you train a language model, what you're really creating is a black box. And the last thing you want to do, and this is what we have heard in the hard way over the last 2 decades working for the water sector, is the last thing you want to do is to deliver a black box to your customers.
Absolutely. It needs to be inspectable.
Exactly. So our approach is using GPTs to understand the content, to read through the log notes and all of that content, which is coming unstructured or structured, and create what we call a knowledge twin, which is a combination of knowledge graph technology as well as custom-trained language models, which are hosted on-prem. And this combination is what we call a knowledge twin. And what this knowledge twin now embodies is it embodies all the assets that a customer has. It embodies all the operation that the customer is doing. What are the issues happening? How are those being resolved? What are the best practices? In certain situations, we even interview experts in those organizations. Like tomorrow, I have an interview with one of the experts in one of the pumping stations. He has been there for almost like 10 years. So I'm interviewing this person and I'm going to take a digest of his brain. And we train AI on what's the best way to operate this pump station, what to avoid and what to do in certain situations. So we create this twin. And then this twin is very rigorously tested for its accuracy. So through the process of training, we engage customers on the insights that this twin is picking up. If the twin picks up that, for example, your screens in your sewer pumping station are problematic, we validate, is this true? Is this what you think is the right answer? So we engage them rigorously in accuracy testing. So once they are happy, then the twin is, we do a beta release to them. They start to test. There is roughly a 1 month period where they test. And if they have any questions, any clarifications, or any fine tunings they want us to do, we do that. And then finally, it is released. But continuously, they're able to provide feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. The way we release to our customers is through a conversational interface. So they can talk to this twin on WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, or even we vertically integrate this twin within their ecosystem of digital tools. So if they have a work order system, then the twin is plugged right in to data processing pipeline where they need that intelligence. So if an alarm comes, it can go to the twin. Twin can say, yeah, no need to respond to this alarm. It's fine. Or the twin can say, my recommendation is go, dispatch crew now. So that's an overall process, how we release to our customers.
So talk us through somebody who's using this either in the field or within the utility. Describe the kind of the day in the life of somebody who has TeamSolve in their hands. I just want to get to this kind of practicality because I think a lot of people who are thinking about AI kind of within water, but also probably more generally, is something that's kind of happening like out there. But kind of preamble, what you sort of talked about was this power of making AI really, really practical. I'd love to hear how you're reflecting about what you've seen, the practical interface of the people who are using it with the product.
The good thing is, like we started with this conversation, what's an impact AI can have? The good thing is AI is helping to leapfrog even those water utilities who are really, really digitally starting on the journey. So both spectrums of the water utilities, one which are really, really mature, like the PUBs of Singapore, and you have DC Waters of the world and all that. They're like really digitally mature. They have all those tools available. But then the other end of the spectrum is you have a lot of utilities in the emerging markets, like, for example, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Pacific Islands, etc., where they don't have a lot of tools and they don't have a lot of money. Affordability.
Not just in emerging markets.
Exactly.
You described like 90% of the US, but yeah. Go
exactly. So I'll give you an example of one of our customers, Balibago in Philippines. We did project with them, and we are so glad that they're taking this on at the next level and expanding across the board. For this particular customer, the knowledge twin that we delivered is an end-to-end, like turnkey solution. So the life for a field technician, for example, for Balibago, how he or she uses the twin is if they're going out doing a leak survey, they have this twin on WhatsApp with them. They go out, they're doing a leak survey, they talk to the twin, they say, I'm going to this site for a leak survey. Let me know what do I need to know about this area. Twin knows about that area. Twin has the history and guides this person about the safety precautions, etc., about this area. So the person goes, does the leak survey, finds XYZ, and tells the twin that, okay, this is what I found. So this is not a one-way question answering system, what we have built. It's a two-way knowledge and generate knowledge system where the system has been trained on historical data, but learns every day with field operations. As the field operations walk in the streets, what they see, they tell the twin keeps learning. Today, all the leak surveys are done, and this is where everything has been found. So they do the leak survey, they tell the twin what they have done, reports are created automatically, reports go back to the supervisor, supervisors see immediately what has been done in the field, rather than waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, and somebody having to read those reports manually. Instantaneous visibility to the field, the back office. And then the management in this water utility, because the twin is learning from all these operations, the management can start to ask questions on the broader insights. Which area we have high NRW? What is the cause? What types of pipes keep breaking all the time? Which flow meter is not very reliable, etc., etc. So all those questions that normally takes them weeks and weeks for them to go and answer and ask somebody, now the twin, through all that real-time inputs coming from the field, is able to answer straight away. So this is an example of a developing utility where they use the twin as an end-to-end tool, from helping the field teams in doing their leakage surveys or asset maintenance surveys, capturing what they have done in the field, learning from it, and delivering reports and insights to the back office teams for long-term asset planning. And then an example I give you for developed utility, like one in Australia, the usage there is in a command center environment, not out in the field, it's in the back office. So the people sitting in the command center, they have alarms coming up on the screen. And the problem they have is when an alarm comes, they not always know what to do with this alarm, whether to dispatch somebody to the field or not. So when an alarm comes, they have a screen with them where they can access the knowledge twin, and they can tell the twin, okay, I have this alarm. What do you think? What is your recommendation? So twin goes through the history of the alarms and comes back with a recommendation and says, looks like for this particular alarm, although it's a priority 2 alarm, which requires you to respond in 2 hours, but I see historically you have never been able to solve this problem in 2 hours. It has always taken you 3 days. So this is 2 a.m., no point sending anybody at this point in time. Wait till morning, manage this situation, and then send somebody out in the morning. So helps them with alarms triage. So 2 cases, one in the field and one in the back office. Both.
Absolutely. How do you reflect on the importance of reliability and accuracy? I always think one of the really interesting things is that we can deal with human fallibility all day long, just as people. But when you're working with a system, one of the big complaints, and I find it's such an interesting kind of like semantic dodge, is that calling AI's mistakes hallucination. One of the things that we've looked, and one of the things we were really impressed by with TeamSolve, is your degree of reliability. But how have you thought about that, and how have you kind of achieved it? And what are your reflections on the need for reliability?
Like we spoke earlier, is anything we do in the water sector, because these are critical systems. Any recommendation you give to the field teams or the command center people, if they cannot trust it, they're never going to use it. Your product is doomed forever. So we knew this from day one. And from an architecture perspective, we have grounded it in the architecture from the beginning. We do not train the language model. We do not fine-tune the language models. because it just becomes black box and it becomes difficult to explain when you ask a question. Hey, you ask the twin, hey, why do you say so? Why do you say I should not dispatch the crew right at this point in time? That's why the insights, the learnings are separated from the language model. We use the graph technology, and the graph technology is a transparent technology. You can see what's happening. When you ask a question, when the twin tells you, okay, the inlet valve has been problematic, it can show you on the screen. This is why I show you, because look at all these connections coming into this inlet valve. So that's one part from an architectural perspective, but also we engage our customers very early on through the training stages. So we engage their experts. Every insight that the system produces from day one is validated with our customers to make sure that they're okay with the kind of recommendations which are coming. And then on an ongoing basis, there's always an option for our customers to provide feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down to the recommendation answers which are coming. So there is a continuous learning, continuous feedback loop. And we have put together a very extensive support structure in our customer success teams. So the customers have a point of contact. Any new knowledge that goes into the system, we didn't talk about this, but the system is trained on a water domain knowledge. If a piece of knowledge goes into the system which contradicts with the basic theory, it does not go into the graph straight away. It passes through a validation check with human in the loop. And that this human in the loop will normally be a human expert in the water systems. So we have put together very extensive checks and balances to make sure customers can trust our systems.
Absolutely vital. I want to change gears a little bit to the way in which you've chosen to build the team. You've all worked together as co-founders together in a company called Vicente, which was bought by Xylem. It was 2018, 2017? 2016. So you were then Xylem, like superb partners of BIV. But you've got a kind of a distinct structure. You're working together, but you work remotely. And then you obviously have an interesting way in which you've set up your kind of technical team. Could you just walk us through how you're set up and how you thought about it and what the pros and cons, challenges and advantages of that setup are?
Yeah, look, we never thought that we will do this 100% remote. Thanks to COVID, we learned a lot how to do remote.
Kind of in the deep end with the rest of us, yeah.
Yeah, thanks to COVID, we have all these tools now, Teams and Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. So when we were at Xylem, we learned so much how to run business at scale. There was so much front row seat experience at Xylem. But within that time frame, some of my co-founders were moved across the world. So I was in Singapore. Then Michael Allen, who's my co-founder, he moved to the UK. And Ami Price, who's my co-founder as well, he moved to Canada. So this happened within the Xylem framework. And then Robin Wang, who is our fourth co-founder, he was previously at Xylem. He was in Singapore as well. So when we started TeamSolve, obviously coming together in one country was just impossible to begin with. We came together once to brainstorm. We went to the UK to brainstorm some ideas. Okay, what we're going to do.
Great place to brainstorm.
To brainstorm on the ideas. We went to the UK and we went there towards the end of the COVID timeframe. And the funny thing, Michael Allen, he's based in the UK. And he said, okay, all of you come to UK and I'll host you and I'll book a castle for you and we can discuss all day long. And what happens? We go there, day one, Michael Allen gets COVID. And then the rest of the week we were there, Michael Allen was not there. So he was hosting us and he was at home. So we learned that we have to make it work remotely. I mean, the good thing is, although we're in 4 different geographies, I'm in Melbourne right now. So we have Melbourne, Singapore, Canada, UK covered by 4 founders. The advantage that gives us is it gives us access to 4 corners of the world, the 4 markets. Some of these markets we have always worked with. So it just gives us planted in those markets. So it gives us a massive advantage. At the same time, we set up a team in Pakistan, which is our core development team. And that's where I come from, my home country. And top talent, amazing talent. I was so shocked to see how some of the Pakistani graduates were learning AI through some practical courses as part of the degrees. And when we interviewed them, I was just blown away. And the cost efficiencies of that team. So what we have structured ourselves is the core team works out of Pakistan, which is the development team. Michael Allen leads that team. And then we have multiple daily checkups. We meet each other on a quarterly basis in person to keep everybody together, everybody excited, everybody on the vision, streamlined. And the structure has been working so far pretty good.
Excellent. No, it's so unbelievably well executed. And I think the cost structure is such an integral part of it, especially in the context of doing what you're doing, where AI talent has, let us say, choices, in and around the place. It's a very, very intelligent way of doing it. I also wonder, what did you take with you from your Vicente experience, your previous founding experience, and what did you leave behind? What do you feel like you've had to retain and then drop?
Yeah, I think drop is the first thing to drop is Vicente was based in Singapore, and we were in one office, and we were able to knock on each other's door, and if there were conflicts or there were discussions, we were able to supercharge all of that face to face. So we just have to let go of all of that because that was just not possible in the new world. But I think the biggest lesson from Vicente was the power of collaboration and partnerships. Vicente was a great example of both internal and external partnerships. Internally, of course, between Michael Allen, myself, and Ami, bringing different expertise from IoTs and software and water domain experts. So how did we three came together to build a product that solved real world problems? That was an internal collaboration. But then externally what we realized is working with TUB of Singapore and some of the other amazing water utilities, as we built the product over a period of 5 years before it was acquired by Xylem, it was all those collaborations and inputs from the industry and our customers that helped us stay focused on value creation for our customers, solving real problems. Stay focused on solving real problems, engage customers, go out there in the field, not sitting in your office and do the coding, just be out there. If your product is about solving some field technician's problem, be a field technician for a day. If you're solving a problem for a command center person, be a command center person for a day. Sit with this person for a day and see how it works. That's all what we learned from that Vicente time. And we are applying that 1000% at TeamSolve as we are getting into practicalities of AI applications. One of our testimonials that has just come up for one of the TeamSolve applications from Australia, that testimonial says exactly this, that this is an example of solving a simple problem with AI, which is an existing problem, rather than creating something mumbo jumbo where AI could be applied. So I think that's an evidence, I would say, a testimonial to our approach to putting ourselves in customer shoes, being with our customers, and basically using our collaboration.
So how do you think about maintaining that over time? Because obviously, TeamSolve is going to be an insane runaway success, and you'll be working with hundreds of utilities and, generating gazillions of dollars in revenue. It can be tough to hold on to that point of view, no matter how vital. And I guess there are two parts to this question. Firstly, how do you think about maintaining that as the company grows? And then the second part of it is, how do you transmit the importance of it to people who aren't necessarily as experienced in understanding the importance of staying close to the customer when they come in?
I'll address the second one first. We do our sprint closures every 2 weeks. So we have 2-week sprints, and every 2 weeks we have a sprint retrospective. This is a sprint retrospective with our software AI team. And traditionally, software teams, AI teams, back office teams, they just focus on, okay, this is a feature I'm supposed to develop. This is a screen I'm supposed to develop. I'm going to develop this screen and I'm done with it. I'm going to go on holiday. That's the typical mindset. What we do in our retrospectives is we have a column which is compulsory for everybody to respond to. And that the heading of that column is, how did your work in this sprint help TeamSolve's customers? Think customer first. Even a programmer, a QA person, even a DevOps person who is setting up cloud environments, he or she has to think. If he has clicked on few buttons, how did that help TeamSolve's customers? What I have done in this sprint. So as a culture in the company, customer comes first, customer thinking comes first. We typically say, at any point in time, somebody asks you, how does that, what you're doing, help our customers? If you cannot answer, stop. Reach out to the management, reach out to everybody and say, hey, I have been given this. I don't know how this work is helping our customers. So that's how we are maintaining that. And obviously, there is a constant flow of information from the people who are facing the customers, like myself and Robin Wong and our business development people who face the customers. They provide constant feedback and inputs to our teams. So it's a company culture we have. To the first point, how do we maintain this? Of course, I totally agree with you. First few customers are always sweethearts. It's the first few ones that we always keep close.
Always the most special.
They're really special. And they're the ones who take chance on us little startups. They believe in you, and they're the ones who take chance on new technologies and help to move the needle. Over time, I think as the organization grows, this feedback channel from our outer-facing people, outer-facing staff, outer-facing part of the organization, we will keep that flow incoming. Whether we personally, some part of the organization is not able to go and talk to our customers firsthand, but it will be through our partnerships, our distribution channels and networks who will be really, really close to the customers. And our selection of those channels will make sure that the customer stays at heart and their problems and their feedback sees a direct line into the product.
So I'm just wondering about how you're thinking about this, which is one of the things that we find like very attractive as we kind of play this out and where you're going. We think that there are really interesting returns to scale in terms of data credibility, ideally kind of, seeing reduced sales cycles and then obviously the ability to charge more as you go forward. But how are you thinking internally about the creation of Moats? So how are you thinking about the flywheels that are inherent in what happens as you add new customers? I'm interested to hear how it's developed. We have our idea, but to hear how it's developed from your perspective would be great.
There are a few different dimensions to the defensibility and moat, if that's what you're alluding to. One, of course, if we purely talk about the product, so one, of course, is as we're building the product, as the language models, as the knowledge bases grow, the knowledge bases which are being developed are based on the tested knowledge coming from real utilities, not scraped from the web or internet. So any other company coming up, that's really what's missing at this point in time. So when we talk to our customers, especially in the developing economies, like we're working with the Pacific Islands through the ADB support, and what they say, climate change is a big issue, and we want to understand how do we respond to natural disasters? How do we manage our water systems in natural disasters? So let's say this is Solomon Islands, and they say, how are Fiji doing it? Can we learn from how Fiji are doing it? Now think about ADB's model, right? So if they can help build a common knowledge base across the Pacific Island communities that every community is able to tap. So if a natural disaster, God forbid, happens in one place, if it has happened in another place, then they would be able to tap onto the knowledge and the incident response. So this is not written anywhere on the web that you can just scrape and build a language model. So this is one key moat, key part of the defensibility that we're building. And we hope that as we demonstrate the accuracy of the system that we're building, we will also help to promote collaboration across the industry, that people and utilities and communities and the countries and the organization will be open to sharing those knowledge bases. So that's one part of it.
It's such an interesting example of a network effect, because obviously as you build the map, there are going to be commonalities between, obviously be distinct differences as well. You've got to make sure what you're including and what you're not. But overall, building this incredibly complicated picture of what is the commonality of managing these entities up and over time, up to and including the surprises, having the very, very specific alongside the generalizable is such an interesting thing that's very, very hard to build, and will accelerate as you get
Exactly.
Get bigger. I really appreciate it. One thing I just wanted to ask before we do our final closing question, we're big focus junkies at BIV. You are definitely the first founding team that is operating in 4 distinct countries. But one of the value propositions you have, as you rightly alluded to, is that you have coverage of 4 distinct and unique markets within the founding team. But nevertheless, again, we're big believers, and we've discussed this a lot, like focus is so important, especially early. How do you go about managerially as the CEO squaring that circle? Is it just the same thing as making sure that we're relentlessly focused on the customer? Or is there something distinct that you have to bring to the team to say, this is what we're doing. We're not doing that at all, and we're not doing that yet. This is what we're doing. Just talk us through that.
At the very foundational level, this stems from the type of customer selection. So we have a criteria for customer selection. So that customer profiling helps to filter a lot of what we do not want to go after. That's one. Second big filter is use cases, the problems that we don't, although AI can solve tons of problems, right? And generative AI can solve a lot of problems. But what we, from a focus perspective, let's say this is alarms response, field technician support, pumping stations, operation. Let's say these are 3 main areas where we have established use cases, built use cases. Can we copy paste across from one customer to the other? So it's these to the type of customer and the types of use cases that helps us focus, but also our geographical presence. So Southeast Asia, Australia, We haven't opened up Europe yet and North America. So really the three from a geographical perspective gives us focus points. So the type of customer and the type of use case, that's really helping us to streamline which opportunities we pick and which ones we let pass.
Well, your progress has been absolutely fantastic. It's really wonderful. This is such an interesting frontier about which quite a lot of noise is being kind of made. But it used to be the old joke probably 3 or 4 years ago is that when people were talking, when they put AI in their company description, what they really meant was sort of a regression against an Excel set of data. It was just a lot of using the word. And it's been such a huge pleasure working alongside you and the team as you're being at the vanguard of bringing this technology to bear inside such critical infrastructure. I really do applaud you. It remains for us, Mudasser, to answer our final question that we ask all of our guests on the Fundamental Molecule. If you had to choose one piece of advice for current and future water entrepreneurs, what would it be?
I think I read it somewhere in your own words that
well, then that's going to be very popular.
Very popular, yeah. Yeah, now that it's on this talk as well, it's going to be super popular.
Sure.
The landscape has been evolving. AI landscape is going to change, it's going to shift, et cetera. And you said water will be isolated from it. So the opportunity in water is amazing. And my sense for any water entrepreneur is if you happen to find yourself being an water entrepreneur, first of all, you're lucky that you are a water entrepreneur. And if you are, just one thing, find a hard problem to solve, which is really, really bothering your customers, just stick to it. And if you can find amazing partners like Burnt Island Venture, you are in for a long, long success. So find a hard problem. If you're lucky enough to be a water entrepreneur, find a hard problem, find the right partners, and you will be good.
I love that. Problem selection is such a big one. I love this idea of once you found a really big, really tough one, just stay with it and good things will
solve our problems. Yeah. Keep your head down.
Good things will happen. Yeah.
Working
a lot flows from that. Mudasser, it's such a pleasure. Isn't it great? I can sit in Brooklyn and you can sit in Melbourne and we can, record a podcast. The wonders never cease. But always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being a Burnt Islander, and we will speak to you soon. Thanks so much for being on the Fundamental Molecule.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers, sir.